Hello, welcome to Tea with Teachers. We're happy to have you on this call with us, and Daniel Patterson is our guest today. And my name is Ann Rankowitz. I am one of the co-founders of JabuMind, and I'm also a clinical social worker and certified life coach. And I'd like to ask Daniel to introduce himself, and we'll go from there.
All right, Ann, thank you for having me on. I'm Daniel Patterson. I'm here in Orange County, and I'm an educator. Currently, I serve as the Director of Education for a therapeutic high school in Los Angeles, and also the Director of Education for a college education program in the therapy space in Newport Beach. I'm an author, writer, speaker, and I have 3 kids of my own, and I'm married to my wife, Caroline.
Great. So the topic we've chosen to speak about today is the importance of self-care for teachers in particular and educators on the whole. We know how challenging it is for all of us right now, but certainly for those who are either, working in the school setting physically there, or whether they're doing, virtual online learning with students. There's a lot of challenges right now, and I think that's really something we'd like to discuss today.
Right.
Before we do that, Daniel, you also have quite a history yourself of being in education.
Right.
And, your firsthand knowledge for yourself and those teachers who you were an administrator for them, which I'm assuming is what motivated you to write your book, Recover. And I thought it might be interesting for us to learn something about why you wrote the book, and tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I wrote Recover EDU. That's sort of a lifelong journey for me. As an educator, I think I'm a walking example of an educator who ignored his mental health, who ignored like self-care because I was too busy, too distracted, too self-indulgent, and too busy chasing something. But wherever you go, there you are. So no matter what promotion I got or job title I got or accomplishment I had, I mean, I wrote my first book in 2018, shortly after I left being a assistant principal at a comprehensive high school. And, I struggled my whole life with depression and anxiety, and that turned to addiction. So I'm almost 6 years sober. I don't have a really sexy story in terms of like anything crazy that happened, but really for me, it was sort of that surrender for me to understand that I can't run 100 miles an hour and be happy and be well and be a good educator at the same time. So I really had to come to a full stop. My story is a little unique, but it translates really well, I think, to what's happening right now. And that I suffered significant trauma at work, with my best friend died by suicide. And that overwhelmed my ability to process information, to stay up to date with my job duties. And I felt like I was, trying to run underwater. If you've ever tried to run in a pool, you'll know what I mean. Yeah. But teachers today, I think that experience was very unique to me, right? It was very compartmentalized in the greater campus culture. But teachers today are experiencing this very unique systemic chronic stress, and with variables that heighten the degree to which they're suffering, with family members and their illnesses, or the needs to care for their own children, or uncertainty with economics or food or living or even employment. So the book that I wrote was really just meant to break down the barriers of stigma with mental health, because I knew for a long time when I was struggling, it was the big bad wolf. It was the big secret. It was something that you didn't say because you didn't want to lose your street cred as like a high performing administrator or a popular teacher or whatever it was that I thought I was. So I wrote the book to really invite all of the stakeholders into the conversation. And it's not just me telling you my thoughts. I spent a long time researching and interviewing clinicians and educators and model school examples around the country, parents and students, everyone I could think of that kind of fits the fiber of a school community, to figure out what every subgroup needed from the other and how we could invite them into the conversation.
Mm-hmm. And we're so in this together.
So in this together.
Right?
Yeah.
We hear that kind of said a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but, you know, schools, the education system by nature requires a lot of players.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher in the classroom, but she's got to rely on, you know, the social worker or the counselor who's in the school who might be there as a resource. There's so many people who play a role in caring for our kids.
Right.
But at the same time, something I've heard often from teachers is a feeling of being very isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And alone in their classroom, particularly when everyone was in, you know, their own classroom in their building. But I wonder if people are feeling more or less isolated right now with the way they're trying to work.
I would imagine, just based on my own experience and the educators that I've spoken with, that the sense of isolation is far greater than it's ever been. And it's really confusing because we have this global universal shared experience, right? But it's removed us from the fiber of normalcy. So we're in this grieving process really as a nation, as a world, because just as our students are grieving the loss of sports or going to school or seeing their friends, we as educators are grieving the systems and the routines and the reliable structures to deliver learning and to have time for yourself. And those things are absent. One of my calls to action, I wrote a piece for a magazine in Texas, and my call to action to educators was to be the lead griever. We talk a lot about being the lead learner. We need to be the lead griever, and oftentimes in grief, one of the steps is, you know, denial. Like, we don't want to really admit that something is missing or that there's an ingredient that we're used to and we can no longer make the recipe as it was. So really, social emotional learning isn't really about the kids right now. It needs to start with the adults in the room and in the building. And it's not until you really do face in and utilize the resources that we have as educators to tap into our mental health and to activate self-care that we can really show up for our students.
Exactly. And I think that's very much, you just articulated it beautifully, is the mindset that we at JabuMind have. Mm-hmm. That in the same way that children need parents and adults in their lives who in their home create a safe, stable environment, they need the same thing in school and in a classroom. And so it begins and ends in some ways with the experience they have with their teacher. So we developed our app to be a tool for self-care. Mm-hmm. And we can talk a little bit more about that, but I'm interested in, you know, what kinds of things. You said you came to an awareness that you really were not paying attention to your own self-care. What have you learned, and being in the role that you've continued to be in over this period of time, what is it that you feel will really benefit and are some easy tools? Because I think so many of us, including people in the kind of work that I've done, being in a more clinical position, you know, we're all busy, and it's like, well, I don't have time for that. So how can we you know, face that or, you know, come up with something that is doable? and sustainable.
Right. Well, I think that's a great question. Sustainable compassion is kind of what I call it. So as educators, we have this empathy gene, and we want to put others before us and use that empathy to lift people up. So oftentimes we exhaust ourselves by, especially right now, you want to be there 100% for your students and your coworkers and the parents, and then you have your own family and friends. And so really understanding that mental health is whole health, and where we make time for certain things, we marginalize our coping skills. Now, with mental health, the best defense is a good offense. So it doesn't have to be, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So it's not as if you need to stop. You put a full stop to everything you have going on and go on, no talking retreat for 7 days or something. Although that sounds lovely, to be honest. With 3 kids at home, let's go. It was joining me. But I think that it's just, even like with your app, just small increments of time done consistently, they have a compounding effect on you, on your wellness. In a world of uncertainty, we want to control what we can control, which is your thoughts and how you respond to situations and how you respond to others. What's exciting about your app, I think, is in 2016, when my friend died and I was in this really smoky space between working and leaving that setting, I used Headspace, which is a meditation app, but it's very generic, right? And having something that's really tailored to and designed for educators, because education is such a niche, and it's the one profession I think that people think they know all about from the outside, but have no idea what's actually happening until you're actually boots on the ground in that space. So something like that, something like this app, meditation, self-care, we fall away from self-care where we think it has to be this fancy day at the spa, or it has to be really expensive, or it has to put it on Instagram and show yourself doing it. Like it can happen at a cadence that works for you, but the consistency is really the difference maker.
Absolutely. One of the features that we included on our app is something called Breathe Now. And you can just hit that and just be present and breathe. Breath is so easy and effortless, and yet it's so powerful for us. And that can be just that 2-minute mindful breath. Can just be so valuable, and really that constitutes self-care,
right?
So I think you're right. It's being able to do something that's brief but small, consistent over time, can really make a difference. Absolutely.
I also think with chronic stress, which is what we're experiencing, is that it ebbs and flows. So you might have a good week, you feel like you've got this down, and then there's another variable you weren't expecting, or you go back into quarantine, or out, hybrid or not, online or not. And so what we do is what I call future trip. So we're so concerned about what's going to happen eventually, or when is this going to be over? We're just so future thinking that we trip over here and now, because all of our energy is being captured by things that we can't control. Absolutely. So, there's the principle where every day you make your bed, right? You start the day with a win. So where are you fortifying your day with wins? Where are you fortifying your moments of time? For me, with 3 kids and multiple jobs, I like to get up really early. I'll get up 4:30, 5 o'clock. I remember my dad getting up early, and I'm thinking, that old man is crazy. But now I understand, because I have to have a moment. I have to have a mindset. And it takes a minute for me to be selfish and to sacrifice maybe some sleep for that quality time, when I think I used to be so concerned with, what do I want to accomplish today? And now when I start the day and I do my mindset activities, I journal for 3 minutes every morning.
Nice.
And it's about, how do I want to feel today? It has nothing to do with what I want to get done. So I really place the beginning of my day on a mindset rather than the motion of the day.
Wow. And how has that changed things for you?
Well, I mean, so I use a prescription of 22 questions that I answer the same 22 questions over and over again. And so I answer one question for 3 minutes, and I go to the 22nd question, and I start over. So what it's done is it's been able to capture the progression of my mindset and my mood and help me understand my triggers, because
Wow.
and that might help identify maybe unhealthy people, unhealthy habits. Where am I getting stuck?
Yeah. Patterns you can kind of see, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the right word for it, is identifying patterns.
Right.
And journaling is something that's easy to do and easy not to do. And quite frankly, when my therapist first said I should start journaling, I rolled my eyes. Maybe not, but definitely in my head, right? And same with meditation. When I first got told to meditate, I was like, there's no way I have time to meditate.
Right.
And then I was hooked. So I think that these little actions that really don't take longer than 8 minutes of my day in total.
Yeah. Right.
Replace some erroneous Netflix show I've been told to watch, or scrolling on Instagram, which gives me comparison is a thief of joy. So I don't want to spend too much time on there. So we're not talking large amounts of time that make a big difference.
Right. Well, another one of the features, which I'm just going to tell the world, that we built into our app to kind of help the users see patterns, is we do a daily check-in, and it's actually twice a day where you can check in, and we're tracking that over a week, so you can kind of see exactly what you're talking about. It's giving you feedback so that you have greater awareness. That's the reason for it. It's not, nobody's tracking you. It's more for your own self-awareness, because with that comes all kinds of gifts, really, right?
Absolutely, for sure.
And choices about how we want to show up versus maybe how we are showing up.
Right.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. If you
there's a question, which was, where can the 22 questions be found? Are they in your book? So the 22 questions, I think are housed on my website, recoveredu.com.
Perfect.
And you can download them. They're not in my book. My book, Recover EDU, here it is, can be purchased on Amazon. So
nice. Great. Great question. I'm going to just ask you one question.
Yeah.
What would you tell a brand new teacher coming into the field that they should be aware of in terms of their own self-care?
I think, that is a great question, because there's so many things I would do differently.
Yeah.
I would say it's a marathon, not a sprint, in terms of opportunity and job performance, and understanding there's a learning curve and you will get better and you will make mistakes. But also, a teaching staff can be polarizing, and you are and will become an average of the 5 teachers you spend the most time with.
Wow, that's great.
So I would really, pay attention to who lifts you up and who's there to champion you to make you better, and who is, on the back row just telling you that you don't need to work so hard, or don't give so much effort, or don't listen to that person. So I would just understand that your career will ebb and flow, and you will find things that are interesting to you, and then maybe 2 years later they will no longer fill your cup, and that's okay. I've reimagined the way that I'm invested in education in a way that I could not have imagined 6 years ago.
Yeah, right.
So I think I'm proof that you can do education in a way that serves you, in a way that you will serve people to the best of your ability. Yeah.
Beautiful. Daniel, we are running short on time.
Okay.
Is there anything that you'd like to say before we end today? It's been great having a conversation with you.
I first of all, thank you for having me on. And second is that, you can't ignore or outrun your mental health. It doesn't care about socioeconomics. It's not interested in race. It doesn't care about your resume, what kind of car you drive, or where you live. It is something that is equally important as your heart and all of the organs that keep your body moving. So we should all go to the therapist as much as we go to the dentist, which is at least twice a year. So we don't wait for our teeth to fall out before we get them cleaned. So treat therapy as a proactive tool and a reactive tool according to your needs.
Beautiful message. Stay healthy.
All right.
Mind and body, right?
That's right.
Thank you so much. It's really, again, been a pleasure.
All right. Be well. Thank you.